Our question for today comes from one of our viewers, Elliot. Let's see what he wants to know.
Hey, I was wondering, I've always envisioned the Underground Railroad as, well, an underground railroad. Was there really tunnels in the Underground Railroad?
That's a great question, Elliot. Let's find out. Greetings, everyone. I'm Gail Macinda with History Heights, and I'm glad you're here for this very important story. The Underground Railroad is a significant part of United States history, and we need to know what it was as well as what it wasn't. I remember when I was a kid and first heard about the Underground Railroad, and like Elliot, I had visions of something like an actual trains running through tunnels beneath the surface of the earth. But that would be wrong, like not even close. The Underground Railroad was a social movement. That means it was the combined efforts of a lot of people who shared the same goals. The people who were part of the Underground Railroad were enslaved people who were seeking freedom, plus the people who helped them. Of course, it's much more complex than that, but at least this is a good place for us to begin. It was not underground like dug into the earth. It was underground as in secretive, or as in this case, illegal. And while it wasn't a railroad with locomotives and boxcars, you'll see that they have much in common. What we call the Underground Railroad it generally covers the early to the mid 1800s, but the movement became most organized after the Second Fugitive Slave Act was passed in 1850. During these same years, the traditional railroad networks, the kind with tracks and locomotives, were rapidly expanding across the United States. The rail system was very well known to the people of that time, so the words associated with it, like station and conductor, were common and easily understood. No one knows for sure who first used the expression Underground Railroad, but the term was used more and more as the movement continued to grow. And it's easy to see why the name caught on. Both the Underground Railroad and the traditional railroad had routes or established ways that were used to get people from one place to another. Both had stops along the way. But that still leaves us the question as to why all of these railroad terms were used. Let's be clear about this. It was because of the need for secrecy. They were talking in code. The words used by traditional railroad became code words in the Underground Railroad. Here are a few examples. The track was a path or a route a freedom seeker would travel. A conductor was a guide to help them on their way. A station or a depot was a hiding place. And a station master was a person who hid slaves in their home. The people who supported these efforts by financial support were called stockholders. The people who were seeking their freedom by leaving the plantations were slaves. They knew it was going to be very dangerous to run and that they might die along the way. They also knew that they were breaking the law, and if they were caught, they knew they would be severely punished or possibly killed. But they were willing to risk their lives and leave their families to become what were often called runaways or fugitives. Their goal was to reach a place where slavery was not allowed, or at least a place where they could hide and blend in. In other words, they desperately wanted to go to a place where they could live in freedom. Some people were successful in their efforts to reach freedom, but most were not. They were often captured by the slave owners or professional slave catchers, only to be returned to the plantations and their owners in chains. Even though slavery was still legal in the United States at that time, not everyone thought it should be. People of all races and social standing helped these freedom seekers on their journey. There were people from many different religious groups: American Indians, free African Americans, and even other enslaved people. As their efforts became more organized, the Underground Railroad movement gained momentum. But just as it was illegal and dangerous for a slave to become a freedom seeker, it was also illegal and dangerous for anyone to help them. Yet many people did. A great deal of ingenuity and bravery was needed by everyone involved with the Underground Railroad. None of the directions or instructions for the Underground Railroad could be written down. It was just too dangerous. Every piece of information had to be shared by word of mouth, directly from one person to another. Because of that, most of the stories we have about the Underground Railroad were written down after slavery ended. Some of the stories come to us from the people who were a part of it. Other stories come to us as they were handed down to their children and their grandchildren. The Underground Railroad no longer exists, but we can learn from the past, even though we don't live there. Go be awesome today. Make your own history. Stick around for another video.